Good evening, I'm Adrian Arsenault.
And I'm Andrew Chang. Tonight, confronting the consequences of holiday gatherings.
It's just sort of time that we all just band together and do the right thing.
Quebec considers a curfew. New Brunswick locks things down.
We all deserve to live. And some of us aren't right now. People are dying.
Ontario's worsening ICU situation leads to some grim moves.
But what it does is it takes choice away from women.
For pregnant and breastfeeding women, mixed messages on vaccines.
And holding the balance of power.
God gave us a voice to speak for what we believe in, and it's left up to us to use it.
Georgia voters steer the U.S. into its future. This is The National.
Well, tonight, the COVID-19 reckoning now gaining speed in Canada means renewed restrictions announced and more drastic measures on the way.
It is the result of countless individual decisions made over the holidays. And in just a bit, we'll show you how two provinces are reacting. But we are starting in a province that is bursting at the wrong seams. Ontario now reports a record 1,347 people hospitalized with COVID. That is up 35% in just 2 days. And crucially, ICUs have now 352 patients, also a record. That is right at the threshold where the province has warned surgeries get postponed or canceled. And Magda Gebrselassie shows us the situation could get more bleak.
She's in a very critical condition.
In a Windsor, Ontario hospital, Jerry Turmel's wife is battling to breathe. His mother died just a couple of weeks ago. He and his daughter are just recovering from the virus. His other daughter had it before, and now he fears for his wife.
Christmas Eve, my wife became very short of breath, and we went to the hospital. And then a couple of days later, she was actually transferred to the ICU, and she's been on a respirator ever since.
As ICU cases reached a crucial point, some hospitals are having to ask for help.
We have to move patients to our partner hospitals, Chatham-Kent Health Alliance, as well as Blue Water, to create capacity.
In Windsor and London, hospitals are already using refrigerated trailers to store bodies. And the push to save more lives has new healthcare sites accepting patients.
The fact that we're seeing growing cases, field hospital sites set up throughout many parts of the Greater Toronto area now is beyond a warning sign. It is the warning, this is happening.
Feeling the strain of that are nurses like Heidi Jansen.
We all deserve to live. And some of us aren't right now. People are dying.
She says her hospital has 17 people in the ICU, which is usually all they can take.
I'm sad for the patients that I have that have advanced cancer who missed their biopsy appointment because it was canceled. I'm sad that our surgeries can't happen the way that they need to. I want our hospital and our healthcare system to be able to provide all that care.
Which is why Turmel is grateful for the care his wife is receiving. He says the hardest part is not being by her side.
I love her and I miss her, and that she needs to fight, to get better and then come back home.
A fight that many people in Ontario know too well. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Quebec is contemplating measures not yet tried by any province, including a possible curfew to keep people home at night. It's just one idea that could find its way into an imminent policy announcement. Jayla Bernstein shows us how it's being received.
So you got good? Beverly Spanier was one of the first people in Quebec to get the vaccine.
It was such a hope, such a miracle.
Then she fell ill with COVID, infected before the vaccine could kick in. She's just one of thousands of new cases in recent weeks. The 7-day moving average for new cases now more than double what it was last spring. The curve is not flattening.
There has to be a sense of urgency communicated to the general public as to how serious this situation is for our entire healthcare system.
Some hospitals in Montreal are now operating at or above capacity, and it could get worse. The province is already in partial lockdown, but that hasn't had the impact the province had hoped for.
These measures don't work because they're not consistent and thorough enough to really provide the kind of control that we need.
To control the spread, Quebec Public Health is recommending the government impose a curfew. That would be a first for any province, though some regions have imposed curfews. The Premier will announce Wednesday if his government will go that far. Even if there is no curfew, tougher restrictions are expected.
Measures have been put in place in Canada, in Quebec, but we relied a lot on the goodwill of people.
Officials estimate about a third of Quebecers broke the rules over the holidays and gathered with friends or family. It'll take more time to see how that boosts admissions to hospitals and intensive care.
I am more frightened currently that we're going to be lacking resources than I was during the first wave.
Some Montrealers say a full lockdown might be the best option. This boy says he knows it's tough not to see friends, but people shouldn't break the rules.
Je les comprends, mais en même temps, faut pas faire ça.
I understand, he says, but you shouldn't do that.
It's that or you getting sick or your loved one getting sick, and it's just sort of time that we all just band together and do the right thing.
So, hey, Jayla, can you tell us more about the kinds of measures the province is mulling over?
Well, what our colleagues at Radio-Canada have found out is the province of Quebec is considering a total lockdown, a full lockdown that would last somewhere between 3 to 4 weeks. So something similar to what we saw here in the spring during the first wave of the pandemic. We're talking about non-essential businesses being shut down, also a restriction on activities for things like the construction industry, the manufacturing industry. And as for the curfew that I touched on in my story earlier, what we're hearing is on the table is a curfew that would start at 7:30 at night and go until 6 in the morning. But we'll wait to see what details come out tomorrow.
Okay, Jayla Bernstein in Montreal tonight. Thanks.
New Brunswick has also drawn a bead on holiday gatherings, blaming them for outbreaks now in every region. So on Wednesday, the province will roll into orange. That's its second highest restriction level. Today, the province hit a record 27 new daily cases. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but it is the highest since the start of the pandemic. And it's been 6 weeks since the daily count was more than 20. As Elizabeth McMillan explains, this does not bode well for reopening the Atlantic bubble.
This was not the update New Brunswick residents were hoping for. A climbing case count and outbreaks in 2 seniors' homes.
This is not a good situation. It has the potential to get significantly worse in the days ahead.
Officials say people celebrated the holidays in groups despite feeling sick. Now new lockdown measures start at midnight.
There is a risk that our healthcare system could quickly become overwhelmed. This is as we are seeing in other provinces, and thus immediate action is required.
The hope had been with fewer cases, the region could return to its famous bubble. And although Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador are seeing recent counts in the single digits, New Brunswick is a setback.
My heart sank.
Ashley Legier's mother in Nova Scotia was diagnosed with cancer during the pandemic. Even though they live 20 kilometers apart, anyone arriving in New Brunswick has to self-isolate.
She wasn't able to come here for Christmas. I missed her birthday in early December. It's just been increasingly more difficult as the weeks go on.
This Christmas, Legier's 2-year-old performed for her grandparents via FaceTime.
She kisses the phone and thank you, Nanny, and kiss the phone, and which is weird to see that's normal for her to just do now. My brother lives in Australia, and he's 16,000 kilometers away from me, and my parents might as well be too.
In Nova Scotia, there is cautious optimism. This coffee shop opened its seating to customers after a 6-week shutdown.
I brought some employees back to work this week. They're really happy to be back. I'm happy to see them. A little bit of normalcy brings a lot of joy to people.
The joy of normalcy that everyone is craving. Elizabeth McMillan, CBC News, Halifax.
Now, COVID vaccines are seen as the way to end all of this turmoil, but first Canadians need to get them. And for many, that is not happening fast enough. Here's Olivia Stefanovich with the Prime Minister's call to pick up the pace.
I think all Canadians, including me, are frustrated to see vaccines in freezers and not in people's arms.
Canada was among the first countries in the world to secure large quantities of COVID-19 vaccines, but administering them is taking longer than many would like.
I am certain that as we work out the challenges currently seen in certain provinces, we will be able to demonstrate that we are doing very well in terms of vaccinating Canadians.
On Thursday, the Prime Minister will get on a call with premiers to discuss how Ottawa can speed up the distribution process.
Now, while quantities seem limited, we are scaling up. This is a deliberate operation.
So far, nearly 500,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna vaccines have been sent to the provinces and territories. But only about 148,000, or 35% of those shots, have been given out.
We can only deliver them as rapidly as we can get them.
Some premiers are pushing back, saying they face logistical challenges.
We want to get the vaccines out, but it's not the same delivering them to northern Manitoba as it is to Scarborough or Etobicoke or a suburb of Montreal. It's very different.
While other governments are being criticized for holding back some vaccines to make sure they can administer second doses.
Our message to the federal government, just keep these vaccines coming, because we are going to be running out.
For his part, the Prime Minister says he wants to work with the provinces and territories on their specific needs and explore ways to get jabs in places other than hospitals. Justin Trudeau says he still expects that by September, every Canadian who wants to get vaccinated will be. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ontario now says it's vaccinating 10,000 people a day. It's set a target date to get to all long-term care homes in the hard-hit regions of Toronto, Peel, York, and Windsor.
We will have every long-term care patient and worker that wants to get vaccinated by at the latest January 21st.
The province has now started administering second doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for those who got the first shot back in December.
Now, Ontario's premier has admitted there have been bumps in the road of the vaccine rollout, but there may be more bumps ahead. As David Common explains, some frontline healthcare workers are reluctant to get the shot even when it is available to them.
Okay, come on in. As Ontario scales up vaccination in long-term care, today it was all thumbs up and victory signs. Unseen, though, are those staffers refusing the shot. 1 in 5 across the province telling a union survey, no thanks.
A lot of PSWs felt that perhaps they were being treated more so like guinea pigs.
While many staff and others are lining up for the vaccine, the head of the association representing many care home workers says they aren't so much skeptical of the shot as they are of politicians.
They are burnt out, they are exhausted, and they don't trust a lot that comes out of the government, unfortunately, at this time.
42% of PSWs in Ontario are racialized minorities. That plays a role, like you have to understand that racialized minorities have essentially have this long history of racism and discrimination in healthcare.
A week ago, care homes urged the province to tackle that reluctance with a campaign that strongly encourages vaccination while offering government-funded sick leave for those who may experience temporary side effects. And
workers are being asked often to take time off unpaid to go get vaccinated, and that may be traveling to an administration center, traveling far away from where they may work and live.
It all builds up to skepticism, and not just in Canada. There is reluctance right across North America. In the U.S., some care homes are even offering free dinners in a restaurant to those who get a shot. In this country, few homes are requiring staff to get immunized, and many believe mandating it would backfire, pushing the reluctant out. But PSW Rosalina Reyes is about to get her vaccine.
It's good for everybody.
The more who get it, the more others see it and become comfortable, including perhaps the 50% of PSWs who just a couple of weeks ago indicated they'd take a pass. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, some are wary of vaccines. Others dearly want one but can't get one. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, some provinces don't recommend it. Lauren Pelly looks at the balance of risks and women who say it should be their choice.
In the early months of the pandemic, Dr. Paula Clayman cared for COVID-19 patients in a Toronto emergency department. Months later, she's on maternity leave with her third child. Now Clayman says her hospital won't let her get the coronavirus vaccine simply because she's breastfeeding.
It's been quite disappointing, to say the least.
Ontario's Ministry of Health recommends anyone pregnant or breastfeeding should not receive either of the two approved vaccines. That's because there's a lack of data, since pregnant women weren't included in clinical trials.
But what it does is it takes choice away from women.
They should be at the front of the line unless we have really strong evidence that there's a reason they ought not to be.
A growing chorus of experts is calling for a policy change.
I think that the Chief Medical Officer of Health really needs to take advice from the specialists that are practicing in the area.
Federal guidance is to provide the shot based on the level of risk and informed consent, but there's a patchwork of policies among the provinces. While Ontario and Quebec both discourage pregnant women from taking this vaccine, officials in BC stress the risks of getting infected with this virus may outweigh the potential risks of getting the shot. New Canadian research backs that up. Hospital data from March to September showed pregnancy does increase someone's odds of falling seriously ill with COVID-19.
Pregnant women do have higher rates of hospitalization.
Ontario officials told CBC News they're reviewing the layest evidence and will update advice, but not quite yet.
These options are absolutely not acceptable.
Clayman hopes the guidance changes soon, before she's back on the front line. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the Prime Minister spent a fair bit of his first news conference of 2021 talking about non-essential travel, specifically that Canadians should not be doing it, especially not politicians.
As leaders, we've been encouraging and exhorting Canadians to continue to do the right thing. So it is unfortunate to see a number of politicians not take their own advice.
Trudeau also reminded travelers that as of Thursday, they'll need a negative COVID test before they board a plane back to Canada, on top of the 2-week quarantine when they arrive.
How powerful Joe Biden will be as U.S. president is in the hands of Georgia voters tonight. They cast ballots Tuesday to decide whether Democrats or Republicans will control the U.S. Senate. Katie Simpson is covering the story for us. So, Katie, it is really late. What on earth is going on in Georgia?
No one is ready to call either of these races yet. It is still too close, but the counting is at least going much faster than officials had originally predicted.
Polls are open. Good morning. Come on in.
Lineups at polling stations across Georgia moved with ease, a calm and orderly end to what has been a bitter battle.
The future of the country is on the ballot here in Georgia today.
The Republican incumbents need to hold on to just one of the 2 seats up for grabs in order to maintain control of the U.S. Senate. Both Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue have aligned themselves closely with the president, hoping to tap into his well of support, which has worried some Republicans.
All this other sideshow stuff, all this misinformation is not helpful. It isn't on message for certain. But, you know, it's the hand we've been dealt with.
Donald Trump has cast doubt on the integrity of Georgia's voting system and attacked state Republicans for refusing to overturn the results of the presidential election, infighting that has diverted attention away from what's at stake.
We have 2 United States senators in Georgia who are aiding and abetting the effort to literally rob the people of their voices and their votes. I think that's outrageous.
Reverend Raphael Warnock is the challenger taking on Loeffler. Both he and fellow Democrat John Ossoff are under immense pressure to win their races, as a Democrat-controlled Senate would make it easier for the incoming Biden administration to get things done.
This is history unfolding in Georgia right now. I want to encourage everybody to be a part of it.
With the country watching, Georgians showed up, setting a record for turnout in a runoff before the polls even closed.
God gave us a voice to be heard, to speak for what we believe in, and it's left up to us to use it.
So, Katie, I mean, it's definitely Wednesday morning in Georgia now. That count is still going on. Can you bring us up to speed?
Well, most of the 4.6 million votes that were cast have been counted, but because the margins are so thin here, officials are going to want to make sure that every last ballot is accounted for. The Secretary of State, the official running the election, he predicts a clearer picture by noon on Wednesday. One thing to keep in mind, though, Adrian, this could all come down to military votes and overseas votes. About 17,000 of those could arrive anytime before Friday at 5 p.m. and still be counted. And again, because things are so close here, every last vote is going to count.
I feel like I've seen this movie before. We both have. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
A heartbreaking finish for Team Canada at the World Junior Hockey Championships tonight.
The United States plays a near-perfect game and knocks off Canada in Edmonton.
Well, Canada suffered its first loss of the tournament tonight, falling to the rival U.S. 2-0 in the decisive gold medal game. This is the first gold medal in the tournament since 2017. It's fifth in World Juniors history. An awful sign of the deepening COVID crisis in Los Angeles. They are running out of oxygen for patients.
It is literally like a tsunami.
Next on the national, record surges in California and the fear of what's still to come.
Thousands in Calgary pay tribute to a police officer killed in the line of duty.
I can't comprehend how they must feel.
And a community helps a young boy from Syria live his hockey dream here in Canada.
It was nothing like I've ever experienced.
We're back in 2. Thousands lined the streets of Calgary today to pay tribute to police officer Sergeant Andrew Harnett. Police, paramedics, and city workers stood alongside members of the public as his body was driven to a funeral home.
I think the city was heartbroken. The police hold together the community so well. I think it's important that we pay our respects.
The 37-year-old was killed during a traffic stop on New Year's Eve. 2 teenagers have been charged with first-degree murder. Police are once again urging drivers to clear their cars before hitting the road this winter after a chunk of ice tore through a windshield in Nova Scotia this morning. Police believe it came from the roof of an oncoming car. The driver was lucky to escape with only minor injuries.
Well, across the U.S., hospitals and funeral homes are overwhelmed by COVID-19. Healthcare workers physically and mentally exhausted. California is being hit especially hard. In Los Angeles County, health officials say a person is dying on average every 15 minutes. 1 in 5 hospitalized patients is in intensive care. And as Stephen D'Souza tells us, ambulances have even been instructed not to take patients to hospital if their chances of survival don't look good.
In Los Angeles, hospital waiting rooms, gift shops, and chapels are now being used to treat patients, with ICUs at capacity. Paramedics have been told to ration oxygen, and that if they can't resuscitate a patient, not to bring them to hospital. And even if they do make it to the ER,
we're waiting 2, 3, 4 hours minimum.
Each step a reaction to a record surge in cases that is stressing a system that had a bed shortage even before the pandemic.
The whole system is working very, very hard in almost impossible circumstances to make sure that we can keep that flow going.
California was once a leader in the effort to slow the spread of COVID-19 in the U.S. Now in Los Angeles County, 1 in 5 coronavirus tests are positive. The county has the most cases and deaths in the country.
We are literally in a surge upon a surge upon a surge. And it is literally like a tsunami.
The National Guard has been deployed to hospitals to help overworked staff and to help the coroner's office deal with the bodies.
We have a lesson here to be learned, which is that the minute that you start to relax, this virus takes advantage of that opportunity and spreads.
With community transmission rampant and the variant first discovered in the UK already here, the fear now is over Christmas and holiday travel.
We haven't yet seen a post-December surge. If we do, on top of where we are now, we will go under. The healthcare system will collapse.
The way out, experts say, more compliance with lockdown measures and faster vaccinations. But so far, just 1% of the state's 40 million residents have been vaccinated. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Calgary.
That surge in cases has also led to the Grammy Awards being postponed. The show was originally slated for January 31st in Los Angeles. The Recording Academy has now confirmed the ceremony will be pushed back until sometime in March. An exact date was not given.
Well, next, the race for immunity. Provinces are under pressure to speed up the pace of vaccination, but are there plans to reach the vulnerable enough? You'll want to hear what our doctors have to say about that.
And remembering a life lost to COVID-19, a family man who built a new life in Canada. We will hear the story of his resilience and strength. Stay with us.
Welcome back. So a key thing we've shown you tonight about COVID and elderly Canadians is that across the board, we expect to see in the coming weeks a broader vaccine rollout in long-term care homes than we have seen to date. But I have a backwards-looking question and I have a forwards-looking question and about 5 minutes to hash it out. So let's bring in Dr. Samir Sinha. He's the Director of Geriatrics at Sinai Health System in Toronto, and Dr. Lenora Saxinger, an infectious diseases specialist from Edmonton. Dr. Sinha, in Ontario, we have this target date of January 21st to finally get around to vaccinating residents in long-term care in 4 regional hotspots, because to date, the focus has overwhelmingly been on healthcare workers in those settings. So here's my hindsight question. Why couldn't we have focused on residents from the beginning? Because we could have, right?
We could have, and the reason why we want to focus on the residents in these settings is because 72% of Ontario's deaths to date have actually been amongst residents in long-term care and retirement home settings. So you absolutely want to go to the people greatest at risk. And at first, Ontario was hesitant to start vaccinating residents because of the Pfizer vaccine and its concern about, using it out in the community, even though Quebec and many jurisdictions around the world were actively doing that. So the focus at first was just about vaccinating staff by bringing them to centers, waiting until we got the Moderna. But the key is we've now had the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine here, and we have, as of this morning, we had 100,000 doses still sitting in fridges. And frankly, they do nothing when they're in fridges. They do a heck of a lot of good when they're in people's arms. So I'm disappointed right now that we've said by January 21st, we want to vaccinate homes in 4 hotspots. That's only 161 homes, or 25% of Ontario's homes right now, when we have over 200 that are in outbreak right now, right across the province. So we need to actually changed our target and say by January 21st, we want every home in Ontario to be vaccinated, period.
Right. What I heard from the ministry today, though, was that the decision to vaccinate healthcare workers first was itself a strategic decision, because in a way they are the gateway of COVID to those people who are most vulnerable. Your thoughts on that?
Well, yes, they are the gateway, and sadly, we've had 9 people die in our long-term care settings who work there out of the 4,000 that have been infected. But let's be very clear that close to 3,000 people in Ontario in these homes have now died of COVID. And so frankly, the target needs to be the residents first and foremost.
Let's compare and contrast. Dr. Saxinger, Alberta has also struggled with outbreaks at long-term care homes, dozens of them in Calgary alone, and accounting for a clear majority of deaths. What is the vaccination plan there, and what do you make of it?
Well, we're just getting more of the details, but in broad strokes, they started vaccinating in long-term care on December 30th, and they also have had the same issue with the Pfizer vaccine, and now the stipulation about not moving the Pfizer vaccine has been lifted, and so there's going to be more flexibility now, and it's my understanding that our stage 1A includes long-term care and designated supportive living homes as well, both of them very important. And that is meant to basically be a major focus in January, as well as select acute care healthcare worker groups.
Right.
And then in February, we hope that we will have had enough long-term care and supportive living people vaccinated that they'll be able to open it up to adults, anyone in the community age 75 and up, which is a very big risk group as well. So it's a pretty ambitious plan, but I think it should be doable.
Right, because it's that February timeline. I mean, when we talk about people who live in sort of group settings, so I'm thinking of retirement homes. Is that where that would fit in?
Yeah, so the designated supportive living homes are the ones where there's a certain amount of support in place, and then the 75 plus who aren't in that category would be earmarked to roll out as long as we have supplies in February. So I think that staging is pretty defensible, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to actually manage it, honestly.
Dr. Sinha, the other hurdle, if we cast ahead, is this question of vaccine hesitancy. What is your sense of how big an issue that is from staff, but maybe also from residents, potentially?
You know, I'm actually less concerned in our long-term care and retirement home settings. You know, my phone's been ringing off the hook from patients saying, when can I get the vaccine? And we certainly haven't been seeing from our experience of going into local homes that there's been much in the way of resident hesitancy. I know there was a recent report from Windsor Regional Hospital where they were saying that locally they were seeing that there was about a 20% hesitancy rate among staff. But what we know in Ontario is that when we do our annual flu vaccination of long-term care staff, about 75% tend to, get the shot. And that's compared to 50% of healthcare workers in general. So, of course, there's going to be some hesitancy. This is not the same thing as being anti-vaccination. This is just, of course, some people saying, I'd like to see my colleague get the vaccine first before I go for it. And we've actually seen already that one of the reasons why staff haven't been getting the vaccine is it's not so convenient to travel far to a hospital to go get the vaccine. But when we bring it on site, people are actually quite willing to roll up their sleeve when we make it convenient for them to do the right thing.
Okay, doctors, I'm afraid we have to leave it there, but this has been very helpful. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next, we will head back to Georgia, where voters are making an awfully important decision. Our political insiders tell us what the results could mean for America's democracy right after the break. Plus,
a young boy from Syria gets his shot on the ice here in Canada. We're back in just a moment.
Future of the country is on the ballot here in Georgia today.
There is this sense in Georgia that so much is at stake.
Georgia voters have never had more power than you have today.
well, election night in Georgia makes it the center of the U.S. political universe. 2 seats up for grabs, Democratic and Republican candidates running neck and neck. If Democrats take both, they gain control of the U.S. Senate, ultimately the power to enable the incoming president. So the polls have closed in Georgia. The results are coming in pretty fast. To help us understand how much is riding on this, I'm joined by David Frum, senior editor at The Atlantic, Aisha Mills, Democratic strategist and former fellow at the Harvard Institute of Politics. Thank you both. It is great to see you again. There's so much to talk about. Aisha, I'd like to get right in there with you if we can. If we put the mechanics of this race aside just for a moment, what is the story of this election day in Georgia so far? What are you seeing that speaks to something broader about that state or this moment?
I got to say right now at this moment, it looks like we are going to have our first ever graduate of a historically Black college and university in the United States Senate. It's looking really good for Raphael Warnock. And that is really just a microcosm of what's happening in America writ large with the demographic shift that we've been seeing over the last decade or so. The bigger picture here is that the Deep South is not as red and as conservative as it once was because we've seen a migration of highly educated people move from the North back home to the South. We have a large African-American population there that is mobilized, engaged, has been organizing for 4, 5, 6 years, and so they're turning out in record numbers. And then you also just have an environment where the Republican Party has made things so toxic that it's really difficult to associate yourself with them, even if you have conservative values. And so there's just a big sea change underway in the United States generally, and Georgia is a microcosm of that.
So, David, is that your takeaway from Georgia? What do you see as the story there?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to what Aisha just said. I mean, this is very much, Donald Trump insisted that this be a referendum on him personally, and he got his wish. It's a referendum on him personally. Normally, special elections after a general go against the party in power. I mean, every Canadian who's watched a by-election understands that. You win big, you lose the next by-election, and that's what normally would have happened here. But Donald Trump said, this is about ratifying my attempt to overthrow the 2020 election, and Georgians of all races and backgrounds said, it looks like they have said in the majority, no. It's important to understand what has not happened here. President President-elect Biden has not gained the ability to pass any program he wants. This will still be quite a conservative Senate that he will face, even if the Democrats win both seats. But he does now have the power to organize the Senate. He can ensure that he will get votes on his proposals. He will be able to get the cabinet that he wants, and he'll be able to get most of the judges that he wants.
So it's interesting that you say that, because I do think that the shorthand of this race that people are quick to repeat is that, mathematically, if Democrats win both seats, they control the Senate, the vice president casting the deciding vote. Basically, that's the end of the story. But clearly, that description misses something fundamental, right, David?
Well, it misses the fact that the Democratic Party is not as liberal a party as the Republican Party is, as conservative a party. And it's not as obedient to its head as the Republican Party is. So there will probably be 42, 44 quite liberal Democratic senators, but there'll be 8 to 6 more Democratic senators who aren't that liberal. And if Ossoff and Warnock want to keep their seats, they probably won't be as liberal as a lot of people are suggesting tonight. So Biden will have the power to organize, but he will not be able to pass hugely ambitious progressive legislation, it doesn't look like.
Aisha, do you think he'll be able to do that?
I think we need to think about what the priorities are at hand right now. And this is certainly not a situation where, say, the very, very progressive Bernie Sanders wing of the Senate thinks that they're going to ram through new legislation. That's not what's happening here. This election in Georgia, first of all, one of the key issues was criminal justice reform. We are now in a position where the House passed a significant policing measure for the first time with police accountability. So now if the Senate changes, the Senate has an opportunity to do the same thing. And the conservative senators, the more conservative senators, those who come from Georgia and otherwise, absolutely would support a measure like that, whether you call it progressive or not, because it's something that they ran on. It's fundamentally core to the campaign. We're also in a place where we've got to deal with COVID-19. I mean, the United States is worse than the world. We've got over 350,000 people dead and dying right now. That is all about economic relief. It's about our healthcare system. It's about a lot of things that have nothing to do with conservative versus liberal, but the ability for Joe Biden to get in, solve problems, govern, and have the Senate be expeditious in moving the measures that we need to fund the things that we need to fund to get America back on track. So I think that, yes, it may be true that, we may not have a Green New Deal in the first term of this new Senate, but there are so many other things that are consequential to the American public that are going to happen now if the Democrats have control.
So I have to say, as outsiders, as Canadians, we watch President Trump continue to allege election fraud, and every time he does, the crowds go wild. And there's a temptation for many to say, that's kind of a fringe view. But then there are these recent polls that show about 3/4 of Republicans believe there was widespread fraud in the U.S. election. This isn't a fringe view. This is who they are. So I'm wondering, David, if we can begin with you, what does that say to you about the Republican Party?
Well, let's do the arithmetic. About 22% of Americans identify as Republicans, about 35% identify as Democrats. So if you have 75% of 22%, you got a lot of Americans, but you don't have anything like a governing majority. What Donald Trump has done has to get intense support from a smaller and smaller minority, while losing the traditional heartlands of the Republican Party among college graduates in the suburbs, all the places the Democrats are winning tonight. Those are the places where Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush governed from. Affluent, educated suburbs that were socially moderate and fiscally conservative.
But 77%, though, I mean, I hear the math. You say 22%.
It's 77% of 22%. So do the math. That's not good.
Okay. So, Aisha, we know tomorrow, I mean, obviously is a huge day in D.C. There are expectations, I suppose, of armed protesters, Congress certifying the Electoral College vote with some Republican objectors. What's your sense of how what happens tonight could change the state of play in D.C. tomorrow?
Listen, this threat of armed protesters and all these white supremacists that are running the streets and causing havoc, and people who are, lining up in support of Donald Trump and threatening violence, they are doing it out of desperation. this is the final act for them. Georgia is slipping through their fingers at this point. And I think that the win here that we see is really going to quell a bit of the energy and enthusiasm for those protests, because there's nowhere for them to go now. Congress is going to overwhelmingly seat, or I should say, state that Joe Biden is the president of the United States. That's just going to happen. They're going to certify that. And there's nothing else for Trump to do, and there are no other elections to influence. There are no other states to try to pull strings in. So I think that a lot of this is the quote-unquote threat. It's good fodder, but at the end of the day, there have been a number of occasions when there was an expectation that a lot of people were going to show out on the conservative side, and then it ended up being that the National Mall was empty and there were no protests, because, at what point does it deflate the energy of the radicals on the right? Are they really going to Washington to march? We'll see. I don't think so.
All right, thank you, you two. I could talk to you all night, but we do not have any more time. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So stick around. The moment is still ahead. How a community rallied to help a young Syrian boy live his hockey dream. Stick around for that.
I'm Jamie Poisson, and tomorrow on CBC's Daily News podcast Front Burner, Ontario's long-term care homes are again in crisis, with more than 200 COVID outbreaks. What the province could have done to avert disaster. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, COVID-19 is leaving an indelible mark on Canadians. Over these months, their loved ones have been telling us about some of the people this country has lost. Tonight, we hear about a father with a generous spirit and a green thumb.
My name is Eddie Calisto Tavares. I am the daughter of Manuel Calisto. My father was born on November 1st, 1932 in San Miguel, Azores. My father was diagnosed on October the 27th with COVID, and he died of COVID on November the 11th, 2020 at the Maples Care Home. My dad was the eldest of 4 children. He met my mom when he was 25, and everybody that would see them, even whatever time, 37 years later, would always say, what a great couple. Look at them, look at all the kids they've raised. When they immigrated to Canada with the 6 of us, so 5 boys and myself, by the time we came, we already had a home, we had furniture, he had a car, he had already planned all of that. My dad loved celebrating. My dinner table at Christmas and birthdays, he would have people that we didn't even know, but next thing we know, my mom was saying, set up the table for more people. My dad did not believe that gardens should have flowers. And his entire backyard was dedicated to vegetables, fruits, he'd have his grapes. My dad was also the type of man that if he made $1, he'd save 75 cents. That money I'm saving it for you guys. I'm saving it for you. So his legacy was to always build something, share it, and then leave it. And he did that. I always say he would be like water. He would always find the way to create, to fix, to move ahead, to face whatever challenges came his way.
Manuel Calisto is just one of the many people in Canada who've been lost to COVID-19. We have been telling some of their stories through our interactive website. Take a look at cbc.ca/remembered.
Hi, I'm Ann Pornell.
And I'm Alan Shane Lewis.
We're the hosts of CBC's The Great Canadian Baking Show.
This is a very different winter for us all.
We hope that however you spend the holidays, you stay warm
and stay safe.
Yaman boy came to Canada from Syria almost 2 years ago, and he wanted to play hockey, but he didn't have any equipment. His Newfoundland community just rallied around him, and now Yaman, well, he's a bit of a pro. Tonight, his story is our moment.
A neighbor friend of mine asked me if I could help Yaman get into hockey, and I just put a tweet out looking for some hockey gear, and within 20 minutes, gear started showing up at my door. It just sort of snowballed from there, and people were just amazing. Like the community just came together, and it was nothing like I've ever experienced or ever expected to have happen. It's the perfect landing spot for Yam and our other Syrian friends. He comes to the rink with a big smile. He leaves with a big smile.
I like it because I like my team.
He said that he wants to never be out of hockey, and when he gets older, he wants to coach. He's a lifer.
I want to say thank you to tell who will help me to play hockey. I want to tell him thank you.
Well, that's awesome. And talk about making lemonade out of lemons. This is a kid who told us that it was difficult for him when he moved to Canada, getting used to the snow.
Yeah, no kidding.
He got used to the snow, got used to the ice, too, clearly.
And Yaman, you're not just a good hockey player. We hear with our super secret sources that you are a fantastic hockey player. Just got his first gold medal in a Christmas hockey tournament.
It's incredible.
So there you go. Well done. That is a national for January the 5th. Good night.
Good night.